This is a short bite episode of Homeschool Together. Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together short bite edition. Sometimes I want to wrap myself in a nice warm blanket and be a snuggly little bug. Ariel? In a rug. Snug as a bug in a rug. By Peaceable Kingdom. Created by...
That was a really long, that setup was going, and I was wondering where you were going with it. I'm always wondering where you're going with these, Booza.
Instead of just shaking her head now, she's starting to become critical of my dad jokes. Because deep
They're
down...
not evolving.
Because deep down inside, you want me to get better.
I do. I really do.
But Snug as a bug in a rug. It's not just a silly little saying, but it's a great game designed by Peggy Brown. As part of the Peaceable Kingdom, game platform mega company. We want to make sure that we're talking about the inventors as well. After interviewing Kimberly earlier this week, we want to make sure where we can. We want to make sure who is creating the game. So if you enjoy the game, you can go see if that inventor or creator has made anything else that you might enjoy.
Yeah, she says here she did Count Your Chickens, which is another one that we have for Peaceable Kingdom, which I don't think we've talked about on the podcast, but we may talk about it at some point. But yeah, this is another cooperative one. Peaceable Kingdom, I don't know if all of them are cooperative.
Yeah,
but
a lot of them have been.
So
what's the premise of the game?
This is a preschool to kindergarten type game. I think you probably go to first grade with it, or maybe a little older. It's the premise of the game is you've got a rug there, and they've actually stood it up on little platforms so that it stands up off the table just slightly. And you have all of these little bugs that are circular tokens.
And they have different characteristics about them.
That's right. So the bugs have different attributes. So there are eyes on every bug, and some bugs have little eyes and some have big eyes. There are shapes on their backs, and they could be stars or squares or circles or triangles. And then there are a number of those. So there could be one shape or four shapes or three shapes. And then each bug is its own color. So these are the four main attributes of each bug. And on every turn, you're going to be trying to find an attribute. And then if you do, you'll slide that bug under the rug. And if you are not able to find one with that attribute, then you're going to get a stink bug.
Daddy bug.
And if you get 3 stink bugs, then you're out of the game.
Yep.
So one of the things, this is really, it's a simple premise. One of the things that I like about it is that they've given you a mechanism to level up with your kid. So there's a spinner here that has all these different attributes on it that you spin. And so one spinner will align you with a color, a shape, a number of shapes, and an eye size, big or small. And so in the earlier stages, so you could start this with a 3-year-old. You roll the die, and if the die has colors on it or numbers or whatever the attribute on the die for the whole game, whatever the spinner comes up with, regardless of the other attributes it shows, you're going to focus on that one. So if you rolled colors, then you spin the spinner, whatever color it shows, that's all you're looking for.
Yeah.
So work with kids on recognition of colors, shapes, numbers, big versus little, so sizing. So that's kind of the initial step.
That's the initial one.
The base level.
Then you begin to level it up and add more.
Right. Then you'll be rolling the die and adding more attributes. You roll the die every turn, and then eventually you'll get to the level where you won't roll the die at all. You'll just use the spinner, and you're trying to get 2 out of the 4 attributes that any one spinner will align with.
Picking and choosing.
So that's kind of nice,
yeah.
Right? So when we played this with our daughter, it was like, okay, well, so let's see. It's something that's red, has big eyes, 3 shapes, and circles. And so she's like trying to parse out, okay, how do I meet this with 2 of the 4 things, and which 2 do I choose? Because you could choose any of them.
Sometimes like you would expect the learner to be stuck on the color and to be able to say, okay, I really don't care about color, even though that's kind of the dominant thing. That's a skill to learn. Like we were playing this weekend 5 crowns.
Yeah.
And like almost universally,
we were playing with grandma, not
with
our learner.
Yeah, not with learner. But we were universally picking groupings. We weren't doing the straights.
Right, we were doing sets. We weren't
Sets
doing
instead
straights because it was harder for our brains to like put
wrap your
those
head
together.
around it. Yeah, and so you end up gravitating. So that's like a kind of a really cool skill to be.
You're like filtering out information.
The big flashing light right in front of you, and you're like, ignore that it wants red because I could also pick the yellow one that fulfills the other two characteristics. And that's a really cool little skill to learn, being able to filter out the thing that's flashing right in your face.
Right. Well, and going through and saying, okay, well, I'm going to pick these two attributes and I'm going to test and I'm going to go look at the whole board. And if nothing meets those two, okay, I'll make one change. I'll keep one attribute the same, but I'll change the second attribute to be something different. And then I'm going to look again. And I saw our daughter doing that, and she would kind of like put her fingers on the two attributes she wanted to use and then search the board. Oh, no, that didn't work. Okay, change something. Now let's search the board. Yeah. And I think it could be really cool too if your learner's a bit older, to add a time element to this, because I think that could add some fun. We found that it wasn't very difficult. In the few games we played I don't know, 4 or 5 games, that stink bugs kind of came up only at the end when there wasn't a lot left, and I think we only lost 1 of our 5 games, right? Mm-hmm. So, but I would love to see a time element placed in this. If you've got a learner that's a bit older, and you could kind of add some
urgency.
Urgency, yeah, that's the right word. That's the word I'm looking for. I think that would be really great with this game. It's a great way to teach these, especially if you've got a learner that's stuck on one particular problem. Our daughter, we were talking about this earlier, just couldn't learn colors. Like, it was just so hard for her as a preschooler to learn colors. Our 2-year-old, before 2, was able to, she knows all our colors. But our older daughter, that was something she was really struggling with. So this game, if we had gotten this when she was in preschool, would have been really great when she was struggling with that, because we could have really worked colors. And so I think it's great. I love that it has levels, because it just gives longevity.
A game that grows with the learner is really nice. Yeah,
it's hard sometimes when you get these preschool games, because you're going to invest in it, and then it's like, oh, it's only going to be good for like a year.
Yeah, right. They get kind of bored with it. We've played a couple games that I think she's passed, and you can tell she's like, oh, okay, I'm not into this anymore.
Right. I think maybe we might get a second round of those when her sister's old enough to play them. And she's kind of taking on more of the role of like we do as the adult. We still enjoy playing with her, even though, Hoot Owl Hoot is not a challenge for me.
Yeah, right.
I still enjoy playing it with her because I enjoy seeing her enjoy it and the experience of doing something with her. So hopefully we'll get a second round on those. But I think this is a really, really solid cooperative choice. And if you're looking to work on colors, numbers, shapes, or sizing, I think big, little, and it's cooperative. I love that all these Peaceable Kingdom games.
Yeah, especially with the youngins being cooperative is really nice. So there's not that competition element as much.
Yeah, I think it could be cool, like going on the longevity of the game thing. You could add timing. If your learner is older, you could add a competitive element if you wanted to, where first person to find a bug that matches gets to take it, and then gets to slide it under their side of the rug or something. I mean, I think there's a lot of things you could do with this. I think it's a pretty cool idea to have the spinner that shows multiple attributes. So yeah, I think this is a winner, and I definitely think it's a really solid preschool game that hits a number of different areas besides just counting or.
Absolutely. So Snug and a Bug.
Snug as a Bug
in a Rug by Peaceable Kingdom. And the creator is, you've got it.
Yep, it's Peggy Brown.
Peggy Brown. Thank you, Peggy.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
happy homeschooling!